online, and I do hope that a couple of you pop in and would like to know, and we want to try to help any of the new DMs out there try to get better at whatever it is you guys do. D&D is a game for everybody, and we want them to have fun, and you guys to have the most fun you possibly can with it. So, foremost, welcome. Basically, it's going to be for tonight. We're going over some tips and tricks for viewers about our experiences as DMs, also as players. Things that we like in a campaign, things that we don't like in a campaign, along with some of the things that you would love to see come up in a campaign for people. I want to try to make this as informative as possible for a lot of people. So,
alright.
That is the biggest perk of what I want to see happen for us tonight. So that is the big dream for us. I do want to have us have some fun. I'm hoping that we get a couple of viewers online tonight with this. I'm currently popping onto my Facebook to also post the link once again for everybody, if I could figure out how. Once again, everybody, I am still learning, so by all means, I know I can manage my stuff through here. If only I could figure out how, it would be better. Yes, I am still learning this, so we're up to 4 viewers. Nice, 3 viewers. Hello, people. By all means, if you guys are hopping online, please drop by, say hi. We'd love to at least know who you are. We want to get to know the people that are dropping in and seeing who you guys are. Even if you just say hi, we'd love to at least say hi back. It would definitely be a big plus to us. So if you do have any questions for us tonight, by all means, ask away. I will eventually figure out how to stream this on... share this on Facebook? I don't know.
Let me get my bearings.
On my street. Not on my street. I'm live on my street. Yes, I'm hopefully alive on my street. Okay, but no, one of the things that I know that irks a lot of DMs is cell phones at the table. Unless you guys are playing and using D&D Beyond, D&D Beyond is a wonderful tool to have as a player or a DM. It is very helpful for the sole purpose you can look up pretty much anything at your fingertips. It's for rules, your character sheet, to pretty much anything and everything. And with it, it is a phenomenal thing. It is made by the people that make D&D. Now, don't get me wrong, you don't need to technically follow them to have a fun time. You could do everything from a sheet of paper and do everything homebrew if you would like. You don't have to follow their guidelines to have a campaign. So don't forget that. But as far as what we're going to go over, we're going to go with keeping it to the Wizard of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons. Alright? So with that, Dungeons and Dragons is broken down to D&D. We're going to abbreviate a lot of things, so if any abbreviations you guys don't understand, like DM or damage, DMD, or hit points, HP, or AC, armor class, or any of that stuff, those things are stuff, just quickly ask us. We'll answer it in a heartbeat. And those are the things we want to go over and help any person with. Um, just doing that.
All right.
All right. Hey, we're back up to 3 people. I really wish that they would allow us to see our viewers to kind of see what's going on with that, but oh well.
Yeah.
Either which way, I'm more important about going on to it. Over my time as a player slash DM, one of my biggest pet peeves, like I said, is a hands down cell phones at the table, because if you're not paying attention to what's going on, you're going to miss something.
Right.
And when you miss something, it could be as simple as a attack, and the target that you were getting ready to attack just died, ran away, or just ducked under a cover and you have no clue where it went. And now you're like, oh, I'm attacking Goblin A. But meanwhile, Goblin A is nowhere to be found.
Right.
And you want to penalize them, by all means. That's up to the DM. And with that, that's really a big pet peeve of mine as a DM, especially if you're playing in person. Don't get me wrong, a lot of you are now playing online, just like we are. Um, we would love to definitely get up and meet and play in person. That would definitely be awesome, I'd have to say. Um, at least in my retrospect, I would love to be able to meet up in person and play a game or two. God knows I have
Yeah.
enough figurines to play that way.
Yeah.
What's your number one pet peeve so far
For
that you've
me,
seen? Your number one pet peeve as a DM so far
I haven't been
that we
DMing a
have
lot.
done, that we have done,
That you have done?
that we have done
Uh,
to you.
I don't. Let me see. Like, you haven't really done anything. My campaign was basically a homebrew, pretty open ended. So basically, everything that you did, I kind of wrote into the the campaign. Basically, um, I think. Uh, hmm, Let me see. Um, for me, I haven't really found like a pet peeve. I think the only thing that I'll like get slightly annoyed with was uh I would like oh man, I don't really consider that a pet peeve. I can just a preference sometimes. Like do be doing encounters like I made this entire encounter, everything's gonna be epic, and then you finish it in 2 seconds.
Oh
But
yeah,
that's just like a preference. That's just like,
that,
oh,
that is always something that is like hard to get over as far as a lot of DMs go.
yeah.
Like some encounters that you expect to take forever take like 2 seconds, and some encounters that you expect to take 2 seconds take
Would take
hours.
for yeah. I was like, I thought this was going to be like 2 minutes. People, it's going on 3 hours. This just
Now, for us, our local game store, where most of our players will be able to go once the whole COVID thing, and a great place to start asking questions and buying a lot of your Dungeons and Dragons merchandise will have to be Blue Box. We're going to our sponsor. I keep talking about because us group has got Blue Ox where it's everything. You guys can figure it out. But we're local. We're going to rep local. These guys are awesome. check them out. So, great place. I'm going to constantly rep these people all the time. And with that, the main reason I'm going to always rep them is whether you're playing Dungeons and Dragons or any other game, you want a good place that you feel comfortable with. And they have a thing that they call the Adventures League there, where it's a group of people that are open to helping new players. Whether you're just starting out or you've been a veteran for years, they're always down for new players. They're helping you get into the community of learning something new like this. And that's one of the biggest things you can learn. And that's the biggest plus that I can figure out on this. Um, Now, one of the things that Draco's brought up for us, he said something about his campaign is a homebrew. So you have modular and you have homebrew. A modular game is more or less a campaign that is written down in a book. Everything's planned out as best as possible. Leave it to your players. We're going to throw a wrench into it. No matter what you plan out, no matter how you look at it, we're going to throw a wrench into it as a player. So you could plan for A, B, C, D. We're going to come out with Q. Okay? So I'm just putting it out there. All right? Um, that is just hands down how the campaign's always going to happen. You might not see in one of your sessions, you might not see it in two of your sessions. Just be prepared. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, modular books you have are like The Curse of Strahd, The Raven Queen. There's a ton of them. There's hundreds of different books. I really should have taken out a bunch of these modular books just so I could just kind of show them off. But if anybody sees behind me, my bookcases are kind of like a wreck, and digging through all of them to get out my modular books would just be a nightmare right now. I should have done better prep work, but I've kind of been running behind all day. Especially seeing I told Jaraka I'd pick him up, and I was on my way, and then like an hour later I picked him up. It's been a long week. But
Yeah.
as you can see, our normal start time was supposed to be, I think I said on our streamer timelines, it's supposed to be like 7:30, and we started about a half hour late. So I think I'm doing pretty good in terms of that, at least. Hopefully. Sorry, we're trying to get better on our start times overall on all of our fronts. I'm sorry about that. I do apologize, but we will try to get better on our start times and everything like that. But a homebrew is a campaign where the dungeon master or DM basically creates the world. And when they create the world, it's basically everything in it. Now, they don't have to create every little detail. They can create whether it's just one little bit, or two little bits, or three, or four, or whatever they want. Now, they can take a location that currently exists in a book, such as Eberron, or the Sword Coast, the old Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, and put in Eberron. So now you have a map. And said, oh, and now from there, everybody says, okay, we know what characters are in Eberron. We know what kind of genre. We know what kind of things happen in Eberron. So now you can kind of set up and place what happens around you. And then from there, you can then go as the DM and then say, I want to have a heist happen in Eberron. I want to have a adventurers guild apparently spur up in Eberron. I want to have a giant war breakout. It doesn't have to particularly take place in the D&D books. It's anything that they want to add, they can. And that's the biggest plus of a homebrew. Now, a homebrew campaign has a lot of hard work put in by your DM,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time. So when they do the time, and they definitely do put in a lot of time, they have a lot that they have to pay attention to. And with
Yeah.
that, it's simple story, or, oh, I wrote up character A because
Yeah.
of player one's backstory.
Yep.
Or
At
I
the
made up character B because of this. I made up character this for this. I made up this character because of this. I made up this character because of this. I made this story arc because of this. I really want to see this because of this. And all these different things they have to keep track of. So, notepads, notebooks are like the DM's like favorite thing.
Yep.
Don't feel bad if you have to take notes. It kind of feels like you're back in school. I understand. It's a game, but it's kind of math, for lack of a better term. God knows how
It's
many times
math.
I've had to take out a calculator.
Yeah. It's math and memory. It's
Right.
like math with the encounters, memory, just remembering the plot.
Right.
Is homebrews, yeah, they take a lot of like
Yeah.
time and effort, a lot of creativity, depending on how much you want to put into it. You you can create the setting, the whole plot, as many NPCs as you want, what their motivations are, if they tie into your your players and their backstories, if they're considered adversaries, or they can be recruited to them. Basically, they're when you make NPCs, you have to make their personalities too. It a lot for a homebrew, but it can be also pretty fun to make a homebrew.
So, one of the pluses on a homebrew is if you love to create characters, it's a great time to play around with that. It's a great time to be like, I had 30 ideas for characters. Boom. Here you go.
Yeah,
Have fun.
yes, that was my main reason for
It's
homebrew.
like, here
I
we
have
go.
too many character ideas.
Now I get to play all these characters. Somehow.
Yes,
How am I
it's like
going to show Tim, the barbarian who likes to yodel?
like at some point you'll have every character you had an idea of in your homebrew if you made that many characters.
But it's one of those wonderful things. And with that, like, tell us a little bit about your homebrew that you're running for our campaign right now, if you
All
don't
right.
mind.
My homebrew is basically uh, the characters are have been hired by this headmaster of a school of magic, and basically the school of magic is on this island, and the reason they were hired by the headmaster is headmaster has a problem on the outside world where uh, basically there's like a world threat. He could deal with it. He really doesn't want to. So he hired mercenaries. Uh, and basically you're given requests from either the students or the professors. Student requests I usually attend to like just a couple like as short as like one shots. You can either just do an encounter or just find an item for something. Those usually last just like one session. Uh, Professor requests, those are what I consider my sagas. They usually take 2 sessions to get through. Herrick can probably, other press can probably tell you professor quest that he had. How many sessions did it take?
Hello, dabbing whale. Sorry, we just had a hi, so
Oh, you're
wanted
fine.
to at least say hi to
Hello.
him.
Um, yeah, just I forget how many sessions. Like, was it like 4 or 5 sessions for the blood violin?
Oh god, that blood violin one was
Yeah,
a very long quest.
yeah.
So just to break it down, I play a character named Tim in his campaign, and with that, it is hysterical. Um, a quick breakdown: he fell in love with the Raven Queen. That he ended up going and becoming immortal because she wanted to keep him as a pet or lover. So basically, all the other gods decided to pick on him. So in his retrospect, he follows the Raven Queen, and with that, he's studied magic. So he has her as a deity, and from him living for so long, he's studied so much magic, he's become a coffee mage, where he knows so much magic, and coffee mage is a broken version of a spellcaster.
Go into detail.
We can go over the
All
designs a little bit later.
right.
But for this, we'll go and keep it simple. So in here, basically, he went out and hired my character, one of the college professors, and another one of them, Burham, a Kanku, to then go out into the world to go and collect this violin, which was a awesome homebrewed creation. Um, that basically, if the user is evil, creates evil undead, or if the person is good, it keeps out. But honestly, what
So
does it do if the person's good?
if the person was good, they could basically heal or soothe any wound, physical or psychological, and basically keep someone from dying.
Gotcha,
Like basically the like one of the ultimate healing artifacts.
gotcha.
Um, yeah. The problem with the blood violin is using it for too long can cause corruption. So it's and the artifact basically had this like a it was semi sentient, but its only thing was it just wants to be played, and that was the problem. Being played constantly caused the person to become fixated on it, and that fixation corrupted their intentions and twisted their desires to the point where they would eventually start using the darker aspects of it.
And it took us quite some time to go and um, acquire that violin.
Yeah.
And now my character currently has the violin and is currently trying to bring it back to the Raven Queen so she can kind of lock it away. Because come
Yeah.
on, anything revolving around the undead, she wants gone. So kind of part of his duty to kind of make it go bye bye.
Mhm.
Just basically lore for the Raven Queen. She's against the so I'm kind of an oxymoron in that book. Anything revolving around the dead should be dead.
Though he
So
can't die.
yeah,
Technically, you can, but you just come back.
yeah. But tell us a
Um,
little bit more about the school. Like I know in that campaign, threw a giant wrench into it, one of his side stories on it. Um, seeing I blew a giant crater into that village to kill one creature.
Yeah, it was. Well, that village was never a part of that. And it was just okay. To explain, um, the headmaster built the school on top of a nexus, and this nexus is basically just a crossroads to any dimension or time that he can essentially research his way to get to. He's tethered himself to it, so he's essentially immortal, and the power of the Nexus supplies him with other powers. So they use the Nexus to travel around. So any place they go to from the request isn't technically connected to the world that they're in, but it's connected to the story. So when they went to get the blood violin from that village, they don't know that it was what time, what place it was. They just know they went there, they had to go get it. So when there was this one mob, it was a Dracolich, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, a Dracolich appeared during like one of the last encounters,
yeah.
and it escaped. And with Tim's character, he needs to kill all undead. So he basically used an artifact as a mini nuke and nuke the town, just to kill this one Dracolich. And it was like, oh yeah, that's fine. The headmaster's like, oh, that's fine. I don't care. I just want the violin. So
But he had like a small, little, tiny, like side quest storyline planned for the Dracolich.
yeah,
It's
I
like,
had something
oh,
like if it escapes, it'll come back, but it's
it's
dead
like,
now. It's
oops, never mind. It's like, never mind that side quest.
and like, well, I'll just scrap that, put that on the side.
Like, I could always make another one.
Making a homebrew campaign, you're always thinking on your feet. Don't know what your character player is going to do.
Yeah.
It
And
was like,
with
oh, they're
that,
doing this. Okay, write that down. All right, I'm going to use this for the next part. Got it.
and one of those things you definitely want to know is it's a pain to constantly remember every one of your characters' abilities and stuff like that.
Yes.
So a lot of your DMs have to believe and trust your player to be truthful on what their ability can actually do,
Yeah.
especially for new DMs.
Yeah.
So,
I can't remember everything. I'm just like, it does that right? Okay.
right,
I just say yeah. Like, okay, keep going.
like one of the our favorite go-to, not even for Tim to use, but for him to use to keep our other allies alive is Tiny Hut, which is
Mhm.
pretty much a small base. What's nice is as long as Tim can keep his concentration on it, he can keep it up for about 24 hours.
Mhm.
So with that, he can keep his allies safe while letting them more or less step in and out of this tiny hut and
Right.
pepper people. It's kind of a broken thing to do,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
keeps us alive quite well.
Yeah.
It keeps them alive quite well.
I've noticed I have a tendency to make my encounters a bit on the. Bit
Same
of
time, when you have four wraiths that pretty much tap you and kill them, it helps just a little bit.
yeah. I was like, I tend to make my encounters like, okay, I have to take into account the copy made. So I have to make this a little bit challenging. But I also forget there's two other people over there. Wow. Well, they can
It's like,
just kind of slot.
congratulations, we touched this one. He's fine. You touched the other two, and oops, are you almost dead?
Crap.
Hey Tim,
It's
can you heal them? He's on the other side of the field.
like, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
It's like I could bring them back eventually.
Like, they'll be fine. I was like, if I have to, I'll make it intervention.
Now, one of those things also for a DM, and he he hasn't had to come across this yet, is your first player kill. He hasn't had to have this issue yet, but a lot of DMs when they come across their first player kill, it's a heartbreak. Um, Especially if it's for a new player. You
Yeah.
never want to see a new player's character die, especially if they've put a ton of time into it, because you don't want to hurt their feelings. It's a game. We understand that. There's a ton of spells, there's a ton of abilities that can help them get their character back in the world. Um,
Yeah.
you could write in, hey, bring them to a cleric in a local town. Um, hey, there's a church like 3 miles that way. They could probably bring them back.
Yeah.
Side quest. Those kind of things. Drop those hints if you're really worried about the player feeling heartbroken about a character dying. Make as the request for that cleric at the village saying, "Hey, I'll heal him, but you have to help our village against wild animals that, as payment, wipe out the wild boar that were pillaging our current fields." So you have an
Mm-hmm.
extra storyline. It makes for a little bit more progression. And that can
Yeah.
even happen inside of a actual modular. So you don't have to completely follow a modular to. So that's one of those things you have to remember. A modular is just a guideline. It's best to remember to be as flexible as possible and to roll with the dice, for lack of a better pun. Um, the reason we state that is, as a DM, you normally end up with a DM screen. So, one, the DM rolls behind the DM screen, so nobody knows what they roll, and that's for a reason. Because if you're slaughtering them, you could always either be a good DM or you can be an evil DM. It's up to you guys sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, it it all depends. Now, am I telling you to do this all the time? No. If they think you're doing it, you could literally just lift up your screen. That's what I rolled. Good luck, you know. With D&D Beyond, it's a little bit harder to say, hey, no, I didn't roll this. But at the same time you're the DM. You have final say. If you said it misses, it misses. That's the plus. You can all of a sudden have that creature realize he got dust in his eye or something like that. Who knows? It's the real world. It's as real as you want it to be. You know, you're swinging around a giant sword. God knows dust is flying around.
Yeah.
Pocket sand. It's a thing. No. Well, it actually is a thing in the game, but yeah.
Yeah.
So go back to telling us a little bit more about the school. I know you have a couple of different genres in the school. Like you have different
Like
fields in the
majors.
school. Yeah, your
Yeah.
majors.
The fields. I start off with just the basics. Pyromancy, hydromancy, aeromancy. Basically, all the elements. They're all in one like little like college building. Elemental magic. Then you have uh I want to say I won't call it cultist magic, necromancy, hexes, curses. They're all in one school, all in one school building. Then the headmaster, he has his own school building, High Arcana. You'll find like transmutations, um, summoning, invocations, those kind of things. So basically, spells that are considered high level or have to be cooperative with like multiple users incanting the same spell. Those are being high arcana. Um, then with elemental, you have right beside it nature, druid, shamans, those kind of things. Nature magic, those will be right there. Those two buildings will be right beside each other because they kind of bounce off between each other, kind of. Then you have if and with my school, basically the school is constantly growing because headmaster is basically let me just say it. Headmaster is a mind flayer. he's basically hungering for knowledge constantly. So any form of new magic he comes across, either be from a uh, new professor he just hired or a new student that just got enrolled, he's constantly secretly testing them to see, do you have any latent abilities that you have that I haven't seen before? And he's lived for like a couple thousand years. So he's seen a lot, but there's always something new, especially if he's using the Nexus to recruit. So new magic comes up, he finds more of them, he can create a school for it. Like there's, I don't think they haven't encountered that yet, like technomancy, like alchemists. Um,
Yeah, we
uh,
haven't really done anything with alchemy yet.
yeah,
We've
you've met
done
the
our first
bartender.
one was yeah, we did the bartender a little bit.
That was the only thing. That was the only thing with alchemy that you've done. Alchemy, our artificer, those, and then really fusing magic with science, technomancy, I call it. Those would probably be in one school. I'll probably, once we get past the encounter on their own, I'll probably think of something with that because I kind of want to do something with that too. And with a homebrew, you can add to it as much as you want, as long as you keep the continuity of the plot. So me with having a school, I can just say, hey, he's constantly growing his school with the Nexus. It's constantly getting more majors. It's constantly getting more students. I can do as much magic as I can and pull it in. So with all those magic schools that's coming together, you then find NPCs that are either majoring or minoring in all those certain schools. Like one character that other path likes, Narumi. She's a pyromancer. I based her off of Megumi, who loves explosion magic. So basically, her thing is she only casts fireball, but she's a sorceress, so she can use sorceress ports to alter fireballs. Basically, it's a prop composition, either make it stronger, double it, or whatever. Her unique gift is, even though right now I think she's at least level 7, work her up enough, she can go to a 10th level fireball and then twin it and then strengthen it. So
And we've
basically,
tried it.
her gift is she can amplify fireballs.
Tiny Hut comes in handy for that.
Yeah. They did a quest where she's like, I need training. And they were just using she was just using like a dummy
Well,
made by the necromancers, like a dummy.
it wasn't a dummy, but it was
It was
another
a flesh
student's
golem.
project. It was another student's project. We kind of blew it up.
He was like, I want to see how durable this is. So I was like, I killed it with a stone, use fireball on it. And Tim kept using Spare the Dying to bring it back until since trying to see just how
Till we
big her
couldn't bring it
fireballs are.
back.
Yeah.
And then I
And I
kept
think
like, as being a person that's used to using sorcery and stuff like that, my character was able to go and say, "Ooh, don't forget you can do this." And
yeah,
because Durok's more or less new with D&D, he's new with the rules of some of the classes. Me as a veteran, I'm able to go and say, "Don't forget you can do these kind of things with that kind of character." So reminding him, saying, "Hey, don't forget you have sorcery points. You can do this or this or this." And then he learned that he can do the expanding the fireball or doubling it or the other nonsense that quite
yeah,
literally almost burnt down a building.
yeah. Basically end it with them just blowing up the entire training area. Maybe a third of the elemental building. It's fine. They rebuild a lot. We're cool. it, any student gets hurt is basically fodder for either the necromancy group or the healers. That's like a new project, side study for them. It's like, oh, this is perfect. We can do triage. uh, but I
But
make
then
characters
I
like that.
started taking over an abandoned building.
Yeah, you took over in the abandoned welcome center. no one really comes to the school anymore.
Nobody comes to visit the school, so I took over the Welcome Center
Yeah.
as our home base and am now taking it over and applied as a professor to teach survivalist.
Yes. Yes. He applied to it as a professor, and he was like, "Okay, just fill out these 2,000 sheets of paper for the application."
So I handed it to my familiar, which is a gelatinous cube.
Yeah. Yes, his
The
familiar's
receptionist
attendant.
was not a happy person about that.
Yeah, she was just like, "Why are they half eaten?" But it's doing a homebrew that was pretty. It's pretty fun. Uh, I just added a couple new characters, NPCs up there. They met the druid professor, and they also just did like a one shot where they met a new student that just got hired, who is a sorcerer, but his uh, sorcerer's origin is basically dimensional magic. So normally he can either use a teleport blink for like a bonus for like a rest at his level, but during the what when a student goes through an entrance exam, they get to a special space that the headmaster Morag, that's what I named him, creates where it amplifies their magic to the highest degree, just for that one instance, because he wants to see what they can do. And basically, they can uh, when they were testing the student, he uh, summoned at least how many was it?
Two.
Two Eldrazi.
So, so you guys know, Facebook has a ton of different groups online that have a ton of different um, groups that have reference material for like changing stats and showing statistics for creatures that you see in like Magic the Gathering. They actually already have an entire campaign setting for Magic the Gathering on D&D Beyond because come on, they're brother and sister. They're both owned by Wizard of the Coast, but it's still one of those things. They did make a huge thing, and if you don't know what Eldrazi is, they're these giant creatures. And when I mean giant, they're like picture putting like
I want to see
good
something.
6 or 7 like football fields together, and that's about the size of one of them.
Yeah, probably like about as big as Godzilla.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and at the same time, you're looking at it in terms of okay, you look up at this thing and then you're like, okay, what kind of abilities does this thing have? Well, I guess let's charge at it and see what you can do. And when you remember, oh, I'm a spellcaster, I shouldn't be up close.
basically one Eldrazi was just floating above them like a flying saucer, and the kid is just being protected by his tentacles, while another Eldrazi is on their left, just slowly walking towards them. It got kind of hairy at one point, but it was just basically just
Just kinda, just kinda.
kinda. Y'all weren't in danger.
You took me down hard.
Oh, they really weren't in danger. Okay, it they like one got one the professor that they in the group
Percival.
was basically like paralyzed with fear that he was running away. The other dude was being surrounded by Eldrazi drones, and Tim thought it was a good idea to climb on top of the giant mushroom to hit it.
Well, I had to get a better vantage point, and who would have thunk that it would have tried eating me?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah
I should have
didn't-
that getting eaten by it. Yeah.
yeah he
So one of the other things you also have to remember, some of the things that he has used, I also shown him for some. So something that I am also not a big fan of is metagaming. I might know what he's using, but even though I myself will know it, my character in game does not.
Right.
So I will not play my character as if he knows that information.
Right.
That is called metagaming. And metagaming is another big pet peeve for me. It definitely is a hard press issue. Metagaming is basically whenever you take outside game knowledge and use it towards in-game information. Now, don't get me wrong, it's almost impossible to block out all metagame. Whether it's simple as, oh, well, I know if you're running a zombie, oh, they're good against use radiant.
Yeah.
It's okay, cool. It's a zombie. Attack it with radiant.
Right. That's pretty
But that's
like
pretty much common
common
knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah. If
But
it's
if
a
you're
zombie,
going,
use holy magic or fire.
yeah, it's like those kind of things. But at the same time, if you're a DM, you want to throw a wrench in their metagame, or if you find that they're doing a lot of metagame, change a stat.
Yeah. Just alter their stats a bit. It's like, oh,
What
this
do you mean
zombie
that?
is
Wait, you're saying that it's supposed to have how? What? How much health? What?
yeah.
No, that's not what my paper says.
Oh well, this is a very different zombie area you're attacking right now.
I don't know what you're talking about because that's not what I'm using. I'm using what I wrote down, not what the game says, because you don't know this. And that's the point of stopping a bunch of metagamers. It does become a little bit of annoyance if a lot of people do metagame, especially in a group. Uh, Sometimes I will help out and I'll pop up a screen with character information just to help the other players. We do have a couple of new players in our group, so I might pull up their character sheet and say, don't forget this. So that way their character is getting the full of their character. Um, and I'll do it. I'll do the same thing for him as far as a DM, such as using his wonderful duel challenge against me.
Oh yeah. Where brought that one shot that one of my characters into it. Yeah.
So
Basically, it was just like a mock duel because we had like, oh, just flip a coin. Whoever does this is, and it was Barman's character that was going to do it, but he wanted to actually try it out first to see how it was, and we did like a little mock challenge, and it was pretty fun. Like we ended up KOing each other.
yep, same turn KO, and then but at that same scenario, you also had when we say picture throwing a giant wrench into a set plan. I am classified as the tank in our group. I am the up close personal fighter. The opponent that he was talking about would be an up close and personal fighter.
Yeah.
Burham is a very uh, spastic character in our game. Does not think things through.
Yeah.
So we did not expect what Burham has done for his game. We kind of expected Burham to die within like what, 2, maybe 3 rounds.
Yeah. And but he's
Instead,
surprised.
it was the complete opposite.
Yeah. He thought out of the box and just used something else. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do that.
He decided
Um,
to try to suffocate the person instead of casting a spell.
yeah.
And we went,
Using
gotcha!
uh, what was it? Was it a
Bag of
bag of
holding.
holding?
Yep.
Yeah, use a bag of holding.
So definitely think outside the box. And like we said, that's one of those best things that you could think of. Um, I know we still got an extra viewer. Do you have any questions for us so far? We want to hear if you got a question. Um, ask away if you do. We definitely want to help out if we can. Otherwise, you're just going to keep hearing us rant or talk about stuff at random. Now, I know I have done a few different homebrew. I am very prone to doing homebrew, mainly because one, I like to come up with my own world, and I like the idea of allowing the players to have some kind of say with their world creation. So, with that, it is also harder when you do a homebrew to keep your players active. Um, so, unless you guys play on a regular basis, it does become hard to keep the campaign going. And
Mm,
I'm not gonna lie, it does become a hard problem. And that's not just for any, just because it's homebrew. That's for any D&D group. It's scheduling. Scheduling is always the worst enemy of any D&D group.
yeah.
Um, for us, we have lucked out that Friday nights has become a D&D night, and now with us doing streaming, we're trying to at least also stream and show you guys. I'm also trying to see how we'll get about doing the screen share. I know my computer is not fast enough to do more than pretty much this screen on here for you guys to see if I'm running a campaign. So if I did do anything, I'll have to probably hold up pictures and be like, hey, this is what we're doing. That kind of stuff. Um, so I just want you guys to know, at least with uh, Dante's campaign, he does, while we do play, he does pull up a map and uses, paint?
Yeah, paint, and then I'm starting to mess around with Giphy.
Okay. And
Yeah.
with that, you can actually pinpoint like where the players are and stuff. And I saw that on here, there's actually a D&D function where you can actually import D&D and overlay on top of the streams, which is kind of cool.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we might see about playing around with that a little bit. So hopefully you guys can see more than just us kind of just chatting on here a lot for D&D nights. So I'm hoping that will go. Hopefully, if you guys did tune in to our last week's where we were starting off the Into the Wild season sessions, that is going to be the name of our new, like my next campaign that I'm going to be running, which I do want all of you guys as viewers to help play a part. I want you guys to actually be the ones helping us create the storyline. Um, I want you guys as viewers to leave me comments, leave messages, even if it's on the YouTube. If you can, you guys leave comments on YouTube?
Um,
You're on YouTube more than
comment.
I am.
Yeah, they can leave comments on the videos
Comments,
as long as
recommendations, or whatever. Leave those
they can leave.
kind of things. Tell me what you would like to see the us as players go through. Um, by all means, we will eventually try to make a Discord for Dragon's Breath Forge that our viewers can actually join as a group. Um, I'm still new to a lot of this online stuff. Um, I'm on the older side, so I really lean on a lot of the younger group of this team to show me what to do for some of this. And with that, we're trying to get back into showing what we're looking to do as Dragon's Breath Forge. We're trying to teach you guys some of the better things or the older style stuff like life needs. So, with that, actually, we will do a D&D style cooking show. So that might be one Friday night. I don't know. We might have like a big D&D cook night. Who knows? Where all of us just gather around at my house and we'll just do a giant like couple meals and videotape it all. like, yo, let's eat. And
Yeah.
then we might just like comment on all the foods and stuff. So who knows? And we'll post up all the recipes or whatnot. See how that goes. Um, Hopefully, we won't get in too much trouble about posting people's recipes out of the book. Um, we'll find out. Um, don't forget, we do have a rating of NC. What is it? NC-17 or just remember we recommend for adult viewing. We do have the tendency of having some curse words. I do apologize if it offends anybody. A little bit. Sorry, we do have that tendency. We are adults. Um, so I do apologize if it does offend you. We do our best to try to refrain as much as possible, but we understand. So on top of that one, yeah, you guys do have questions always.
Yeah.
On top of that one, like Into the Wild basically is whenever you guys see a DM playing, um, we have a ton of different players that we got make or something like that, and we end up finding out that we fall in love with some of our players. Hence my persona, Herrick. Um, Herrick is definitely one of my all-time that I've made that I love to play as or use. Um, I've created him for a different campaign that we were using as basically a helping hand. Um,
Mhm.
and with that, he basically, I just really liked how he ran. Um, he was basically a complete melee class, and with it, as a player. And with that, I thought none of us, even myself, have gotten a chance to play a completely leveled out character, let alone
Yeah.
what happens if you see your NPCs finally getting a chance to play as characters. I read a book called NPCs. Basically, it's where a NPCs life as adventurers. Um, so I got a little bit of an idea. Books definitely do help DMs come up with some ideas. Books, TV shows, cartoons,
Yep.
anything. Use whatever comes to mind. I have one friend at work that wants help, and I've been trying to help him out come up with an idea on writing up a D&D storyline for Pokemon. I have no clue how we're going to do this, but he wants to figure out how to do it for Mystery Dungeon. I am still as confused as ever on how we're doing that.
Oh, that's gonna be pretty good because they have online that have been Pokemon D&Ds. I've seen on Reddit they have made campaigns for the Pokemon world, but Mystery Dungeon I have not seen. It might be a little bit easier simply because you're playing as a Pokemon. You can take their stats and just use it like that. And
He's not
Mystery,
even trying to do that.
yeah, he like, what's he trying to do?
Beyond ridiculous. He wants to have like the players
Mm-hmm.
being like watered down Pokemon.
Okay, watered
Like
down Pokemon.
like you know how Pokemon in like the games only get
Yeah,
like four moves?
yeah.
That's all you get,
Okay,
like ever.
okay. So you just pick four moves, and you can only use those like what once a day or at will.
Like that's it.
Oh,
Like
that's it.
yeah, and I'm like, wait, what?
Hmm.
Like,
Interesting.
and trying to explain how that does not work,
Yeah. Because
but
how
he's never.
after how they're gonna?
But he watches Critical Role, and he watches Critical Role, and he thinks it'll work, and I'm like, I don't see it working.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like,
Well,
okay. I was like, okay, Nicholas, we'll see how
we
that
can
goes.
we can you get to that later.
I'm like,
Just
we'll keep talking about this.
yeah.
We'll figure out your characters. I was like, let's work on your world design first.
Yeah.
Then we'll figure out how these people are playing. And that's some of those things that you have to sit back and look at. Um, by all means, I had one DM, he wanted a entire group of halflings, and that was his only restriction. I had one campaign where all of us had to be human, which I don't mind. Um, the idea of having everybody as human, it's one less statistic that you guys as a DM don't have to pay attention to, in terms of like a statistic that they have. Because each class or race has other abilities. What you had before? Okay. So it's one of those things like each race has different abilities, as we talked about in our first episode of our D&D TED Talk kind of thing, I guess you want to call it.
Mhm.
If you want to call it that, last week a little bit, but blue stick. Give me one sec. Dante, go over some races as I strangle myself on chain. Dante, go over races. Liar. Sorry. Okay. Should be in the bag.
Mhm.
Sorry. I was grabbing stuff out for the wife. Give me 1 second. Oh, I just, I didn't electrocute myself. Good. Yay, I didn't electrocute myself. Woohoo! Oh, tape. Sorry. Tools. Do you need files so you don't? Okay. Sorry. Wife has school project. Trying to help wife. As you will learn in
Mhm.
any type of world, you gotta help the missus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you
Oh,
go.
want to become famous? Buy
That's
followers, primes, and viewers.
that's a
No,
bot.
I don't think I'm gonna buy people. No,
Yeah,
I can't
that's a
afford.
bot.
I could
What you
barely
can do.
afford my own like day-to-day things. I'm not buying other stuff.
That's a
But thank you.
bot. You can. What those are just computer generated things. What you can do is you can ban those just to get them out the way
So I
because they're
can just
not
hit
real.
ban. Okay,
Uh,
then ban.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
goodbye. Sorry. Like I said, I'm learning. Um,
yeah.
but with that, with different races, you have different abilities for each. As I went over, you have a ton of different races out there. I think we went over and said there's like 30 plus races out there, and there's always more to come. And if you sit down and talk with your DM, you can make hundreds. Pretty much, if you sat with your, if you looked at the 4.0 version of Dungeons and Dragons, any monster could become a playable race, which was awesome and a nightmare at the same time. That's why some people loved it, and that's why a lot of people hated it. So I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I loved 4.0. I spent way too much money on 4.0, but I still think I definitely got my money's worth out of it, so I'm not going to complain. Did I spend a little bit over 5,000 on it? Yes. Um, would I do it again? Probably. Um, am I telling every person out there to go and spend $5,000 on this to start? No.
No,
Go subscribe to D&D Beyond. Get yourself started off that way. Check it out. If you like it, then start buying books, start buying the starter kits, those kind of things. That's the way to start nowadays. You know, D&D Beyond, you can print out your character sheets right from there. Go to Blue Ox, get a starter box. They have like the dice, they have the player sheets, they have the beginner's guides, they have all those books. And if you sign up for their Adventures League, you also get your Tap Mango account. You get points towards in the store purchases, and then eventually, with so many points, you get free stuff. So, depending on what we do as far as fundraisers and stuff like that through our actual group, I'm going to hopefully get us to donate a bunch of stuff to our local children's hospital. I'm thinking that might be our best bet is going through Blue Ox eventually and donating a bunch of gaming stuff to the children's hospital for Christmas. I'm thinking that might be our best bet this year.
Yeah.
I think that might be fun. Especially, I think there's a D&D group that runs through Blue Ox or used Blue Ox at a time that actually works at the children's hospital. So I would love to get up with them to see if our a D&D group in the children's hospital might be fun. But
Hmm?
like I was thinking, there's at the our local children's hospital. If
Yeah.
I'm right, there's a bunch of associates that work there, like nurses and stuff, that actually play D&D.
Got
So
it.
if I'm right, if I get up with Blue Ox, I might be able to get a couple of like the starter boxes and go out towards the hospital with like a couple of us. Like if we get like three of the starter boxes and a bunch of like blank character sheets and pencils and just pick up a bunch of dice and be like, let's go.
Yeah.
And just meet up with a bunch of the kids and be like, hey, what kids want to learn how to play? You know, and have that and be like, here we go. I think that would be a cool thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you see on my page, I know if you follow Coach Caboose, I think his cash thing or fundraiser thing is up and running. I have yet to figure out how to update mine to work or however um, for us. So by all means, if you would love to help us do that for the kids, that would be awesome. You could always subscribe to us and to any one of us in the links. Otherpath, Coach Caboose, Duroc, uh, B4K4,
Oh,
um,
Bacchus.
Bacchus. No, but I think his name is actually B4K4 on our group.
Yeah, the four is
Uh,
usually for a.
yeah, but even with that, it's still one of those. Follow us. We're also known as Dragon's Breath Forge. We have a Facebook page, and we're known on the web. We have a website. It's very sparse right now. I'm still working on it. Um, bear with me. Uh, I'm doing that when I'm off of work and not doing streams and stuff like that. It's Dragon Breath Forge. There's no S. Otherwise, you just go straight to a blacksmithing site. Which, don't get me wrong, we will be doing some blacksmithing too. Um, that will be coming on some of our other ones when it gets a little bit warmer and I get some more free time. So, other D&D things that we want to go over. Let's go on to other helpful things that I would say most DMs would love to have in their corner. I would definitely have to say your starter books, your player's handbook number 1, your DM's guide, and the monster manual. At least those 3 books at your possession, like the hard copies, are really great to have. The downside is hard copy. They're much more expensive than if you get them on D&D Beyond. That's why I do recommend going and getting D&D Beyond. It's half the price. Yeah, it's digital, but if you have a smart device, you can read it on your phone, you can read it on a tablet, and all of your gaming friends can read it, which is awesome. So I definitely recommend doing it that way. I want to say it's like 25 a book opposed to 50. So it's definitely well worth doing it that way. Otherwise, you end up spending about $5,000 on your books, and then once that time period ends and they all switch format, you end up having a giant pile of books that just sit and collect dust. Little sad face. Other books like that, I know that both me and Duroc have finished reading. I picked this up at Barnes & Noble. The Ultimate RPG Character Backstory Guide was very helpful for creating a backstory for a character,
Yeah.
along with the actual like RPG like gameplay guide. It goes over a bunch of different details on stuff like this, and it's written by the same guy for both of them. It ran me about $15 a book, and there's only 2 books, which is great. So $30. They went really well, real easy. There's some fill out pages if you wanted to go and use it, but it's some really nice information, and he goes over a bunch of different things. I know you guys can't read this. It looks like it's a giant bright screen right now on the page, but like how to deal with players that are min-maxing and stuff like that. Min-maxing are basically players that are going and saying, "Oh, I'm going to put all my points into strength." And then all of a sudden they have a character that can't read or doesn't know how to breathe. Is there something wrong with it? Technically, no. It all depends on what kind of character you want.
Yeah.
Now, you have tons of different characters.
Yeah, you could have just a muscle-bound idiot. That's fine, but just make him have some form of common sense.
And don't forget, if you have a character that is statted a certain way, remember as a player, you should play that character that way.
Yeah.
And the downside of playing a character that way is if you're playing a character and his IQ is so low that he is, "Hello, my name is Gregory. I like to eat paint." There's nothing against a character playing that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not making fun of any person that's slow or anything like that. I'm just making that comment of if all of a sudden Gregory is now faced with a issue of, hey, you have to choose between a life or death scenario, and all of a sudden Gregory's thinking like a chess master, and all of a sudden it's like, wait, where did this come from?
Right.
There's a problem there. Your character's not doing what his character should be doing.
Right.
And as a DM, at those points, that plays a problem. And at that same point it's then going to kind of irritate some of the other players. Like, we have one player, Burham. He literally is a Kanku, which is a type of bird-human combination, aka raven turned bird, like human kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is now turning into a dwarf, but that's for another story.
Yeah.
But even on that one, it's his character came across a mirror, and our player literally said, "Well, a bird, like a raven, when he came across a mirror, what would it do?" He literally was like, "What's this?"
And just started slamming his head into it.
Right. And it's like, and the other player was like, "Dude, what are you doing?" And it's like, well, he did exactly what his character would technically do.
Yeah. Birds freak out on mirrors. They think it's another bird, so.
So he did exactly what his character would do because it wouldn't understand it. And yes, his character is a spellcaster, but still, it's what a bird's instinct would do. So he's not playing a character out of what it would have been like the outside of the norm, I guess would be the way to explain that.
Right.
Then, what was it? You have power gamers. I fall under that category, hands down. A power gamer is somebody that knows your rules, forwards and backwards. And the downside of that is I'm the person those are the players that kind of irk your DM by saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm the person that pays attention to, hey, if I go and I have this armor on this character on this uh class with this race, my AC at level 1 is a 21. Good luck hitting me. Ha 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 ha." AC is armor class, in case nobody knows that. Just going to make that easy. It's as hard as you can hit them. So with that, it makes it a lot harder. Is there something wrong with that? No. But at the same scenario, for somebody that's just starting out, going up against somebody that's known that stuff doesn't make life easy. Like if I went up and that's how you get the coffee mage, or that's how you get the characters that are like completely broken in campaigns. Like a character that can run, or not even that, what? Tank.
Yeah.
Where tank can throw, well, God, you have tank that can throw me
Mm.
a good 4 miles,
Right.
and I weigh 200 pounds.
Right. And then what's his
And
AC? Like,
technically, Hammer, his brother in arms, can throw tank, a 400-pound creature,
yeah.
the same distance.
Hey, yeah, this gets kind of ridiculous. But on the offside, they're
They're also
they're
not the brightest tools in the shed.
dumb as a brick. And
Pros and cons of min-maxing.
yeah, it makes it kind of a hilarious situation.
Tank no talk well. Tank no talk at all.
Tank doesn't talk; he just grunts and growls. That's it.
And bring up the no talking thing. If you're ever playing a character, even as a DM, and you create a voice, and it could be, "Oh, well, you talk to the fairest lady of all, and you pick this wonderful voice. Congratulations, she's stuck with this voice for the rest of the game.
Right. You
Oh
can't
my
switch
god,
voices in between just because you're
Belle has
tired.
this voice." And then all of a sudden, you have Gregory. "Hi, how you doing today? After 2 days, I'm not going to remember this is Gregory." And I'm going to be like, "What?"
So pick a voice that you can do consistently.
Or you can just initially describe Gregory in a raspy voice speaks to you
Mm,
and let their imagination. Or if they ask, how does it sound?
you're
You
right.
can do it once so they have a rough idea. And be like, "Hey guys, I'm not going to speak in it all the way, all the time, but I will give an idea on how it's doing it." Because, I hate to tell you, if you do that voice for an entire campaign, it's going to kill you.
Yeah.
I saw that from the guy that hosts the DM's Lair. That is one of the best pieces of information I know about. The voice thing is like hands down awesome. It kills your voice.
Yeah.
I've never been able to keep up with voices very well. Um, you know, if you're gonna do it, more power to you. But if you can keep up with everybody's voice, awesome. If you
Right.
can't, we understand.
Right.
And don't feel bad about it. That's the main thing is don't feel bad about it. You're not a lesser DM for it. We understand that. As players, as DMs, that is the point of it. You're working with your players, and don't feel bad about it. Also, as a DM, don't feel bad about having one of your friends in the game, outside of the game, going to them at the end of the game and saying, "So, what was something you liked about the game today? Did you have fun?" Because that way you keep learning. If, ooh, they liked this part. Do
Yeah,
you
it's
think
like
this was too hard?
don't be afraid to get feedback from your players. That's how you make a better experience.
Like the feedback is the biggest point that helps out every DM. Because if you don't have enough feedback, you're just gonna, if you're doing something wrong or something bad, you're gonna eventually lose your players and not know what happened.
Right.
And you might love the idea of being a DM. And then all of a sudden, like, I have no players. And then you have like the DMs that want to like, yo, I'm all about wanting to run a meat grinder. And a meat grinder is literally the hardest core. Hey, let's go and run this, right? And if anybody saw last week's D&D game, um, pretty much I did not run that match as a meat grinder. Um, if I did, that match would have gone a completely different way.
Right.
Um, to start off, that creature would have literally gone invisible, teleported over to where they were, popped his orb of invulnerability, and that would have been end of turn one. Turn two, all three of us would have been sickly because not one of us would have passed that roll because not one of us did.
Right.
And then none of us would have been able to heal. Not that anybody but me took damage. Then again, that's what I get for being a tank.
When you're a tank, you expect a healer. You have no healer. Good luck.
Right. Hi, tank, what are you doing? Dying? Well, where's the healer? You don't have one. Good to know.
Kind of
Then,
space.
but at that same point, that's the thing to look at. And as a DM, don't force anybody to play something they don't want to play. Unless you're looking at making a group that,
Like,
and at that point, you're literally asking players saying, hey, I have a campaign and I'm looking for a spellcaster, a rogue, a fighter type. I need at least one rogue type. I need one like up close and personal type. I need one healer type. I need one of this type, and I need at least one of this type. Who's willing to take those roles?
right.
And you ask if somebody's willing to take those roles. Most
Yeah.
likely, somebody in that group is willing to take that spot.
Right.
Like for me, I am normally a upfront fighter class. Because even my
Yeah.
spellcasters, for some odd reason, are up close and personal.
Like, yeah, like with my homebrew, my player character is like, you can make anything, you can make any class you want. The only thing I need, they have to know at least some form of magic. And that's it. That was only stipulation. So they could be a fighter, but they can uh, dual class. And dual classing is when you have a
Well, I think they
character
call it multi-class still.
multi-classing.
Yeah.
Uh, so multi-classing is when you have a character that is more than one class. Like
So if you're like a fighter, you also have to be fighter or rogue, or a fighter wizard, or a fighter cleric, or a fighter paladin. or a fighter bard or whatever.
Like Tank is a cleric monk.
Or Hammer is a barbarian bard,
Yeah,
and he's a minotaur.
yeah.
Yes, he runs around yelling more cowbell. No, I'm just joking. I don't think he's ever yelled more cowbell.
Tank is a cleric monk, but he's an orc. He's a nature cleric. Like, he doesn't really give sermons or anything. He just his healing. He yells at you.
And because Hammer
And
has
so
been
is
around him for long enough, he's learned each grunt to decipher what he's meaning.
right.
And because both of them are technically a monster class, when we walk into a village, everybody looks at us and runs in fear.
Yep. Yep. That happens. That happens a lot.
So trying to get supplies. No, 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 don't rob us.
And Tank, being the simple man that he is, thinks like, oh, free stuff, and brings it back with him.
And Hammer, being of the somewhat good class, walks back and puts coins on the counter. Says, here. Not that we ever really put stuff back,
Right.
because half the time we're being chased out of town for stealing stuff.
They're not really trying to steal stuff. They just kind of just lay it right there, and Tank's just like, oh, it's free? Okay.
Tank points, they put it on a counter, and he just walks off. He goes,
Yep.
okay.
We have a third character that's supposed to be their handler, but he doesn't really care most of the time.
Yeah, the handler kind of just wanders around like,
he,
I'm done with this.
he just makes sure no one dies.
And then, like, it's all about having fun. And that's the main focus. As long as everybody at the table is having some kind of fun, that is your biggest goal as a DM, as a player. Because if your players aren't having fun and your DM's not having fun, the sessions aren't going to continue.
Yeah.
Now, another big topic at any D&D game is time. How long should somebody take per turn? Some people keep it to a minute per person.
Mm-hmm.
Some people keep it to, like, hey, I have a little, like, timer, like, hourglass timer that's like a minute, maybe 2 minutes. This is why we tell you guys, and one of the pet peeves is off your cell phones. Pay attention, because when it's your turn, you should already be paying attention. You should have some kind of idea on what you want to be doing. And say, okay, because picture 6 rounds goes by really quick, and if each second long to 2 or 3 seconds long in real world time, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
10 rounds is technically a minute, if I'm right, they said was average. So, what? That breaks it down to almost 6 seconds.
Yeah.
6 seconds per round. So, when you look at it, that's a lot of time for each person. So, when you look at it, it's hardcore to think, okay, I'm sitting there, and even as somebody that has to go and scroll through a ton of different spells, I still have what I want to cast next. It's just at that point then is, hey, I want to cast this. And now it's, okay, I'm casting this. I have to now find it on the list.
Right.
And then sometimes it's like, okay, I found this. I know I have to cast this. I have all the numbers written down. Okay, done. It's like, just hit this button, roll it, and I'm good. And then we're just done. And just keep going. And that's why we tell you guys pay attention, and it makes life easier. As a DM, that's the hardest thing you're going to have to come up with a way to keep players moving. Because otherwise, a game that should take Like you can set up, or you might have 4 hours to play. Which, by all means, if you guys only have an hour to play D&D, I'm sorry for you guys, because I have never seen a D&D session last an hour.
Yeah, they see some people like, oh, we can last. It can do it in just an hour. 4 hours later, oh, we're still doing this one encounter. Okay,
Like, like it can happen if
can
everybody's paying attention and
they know what they
everything's
want?
prepped.
Yeah,
It can
and
happen.
and the rolls are good and they're quick on their reactions.
If everybody's paying attention, everybody knows what they're doing. It can go by really easy. Otherwise, even with that, you can still have some campaigns run for 4 to 6 hours. But when you go to sit down, expect to have some time planned out and expect to have a break at some point during your game. Whether it's for snacks, bathroom, get up and get a drink, a lot those times. Even if you're playing at the computer or anything like that, like, hey, let's quickly take a break. If you have to go to the bathroom, let's go. In between, hey, we just beat this enemy. Let's call a break time, and let's come back in like 5 minutes. You
Yeah,
know, grab drinks, bathroom break, whatever, and then start back up. Those kind of things. Um, those are the things that will help keep a group running well. Look at either getting food ahead of time, grabbing your foods, or something like that. Stuff that can keep you guys active during the game. Um, and I'm gonna just tell you right now, yeah, you're gonna have side chatter about all sorts of stuff. Expect it, whether you guys are meeting up a little bit ahead of time before game, or whatnot. I recommend meeting up a little ahead of time so that we have that time to have your chats before it and then say, okay, it's we meet up at 4, our game starts at 5, we've eaten, we all went to the bathroom, we have our drinks at the table, we got our chips, we got our dip, we're ready, let's go, start. And then this time on the wild, those kind
right.
of things. So that way it's you dive right into it and it's kind of like switching from one to another. Those are the things that are going to help any DM keep a campaign in check or keep a game running smooth. At least from my years of DMing or as a player that I've seen. Um, and I'm hoping like other players that are watching this or other DMs, if you've seen or have something that helps you guys out, leave a comment. Tell us what you guys have seen or have done that helps keep your guys running smooth. It might help somebody else that sees this video and says, "Ooh, I never thought of that." Say, "Ooh, that hourglass might help my group out." Um, at one time, our group ended up taking like almost 4 or 5 minutes to figure out what was going on, and then it was taking so long just to get through one encounter. And like an hour later, we just finished a encounter, and we're like, "What just took us so long?" And there was 3 enemies.
Yeah,
And it's just because everybody was talking or somebody was on their phone and stuff like this, and you're like, "Were you not paying attention?" And you're like, and at that point, even as a DM, if they're not paying attention, go and be like, "Okay, and timer, roll a die." If they're not paying attention and it's a D4, be like, "Okay, cool," and they're like, "Okay." And then everybody, as soon as they hear that die hit the table, they're gonna be like, "What just happened?"
yeah.
And they're gonna have these giant raccoon eyes, be like, "Oh my god, what happened?" And they're
When
gonna be
indeed,
like, and you're be like,
I
"We'll see."
pay attention.
And it could be nothing. It could just be like, "I'm gonna scare the hell out of you." Or, "Congratulations, 3 more enemies came." Or, "Because you guys are causing a ruckus." And that's also gonna be keeping out of game chat and in game chat separate.
Yeah. Like with the blood violin, even though it took so long, I had spots where it would just hurry you hurry on like in the mansion. Uh when you first got in the mansion, remember the creeping chill?
Hmm.
And uh that was their thing where like you guys you have to find where you need to go or you're gonna get swarmed.
Well, not even that. As a side note, Duroc wanted to see how the other two of our players would do without Tim for a moment.
Right.
And it just so happened that I rolled horrible.
Yeah. You rolled really low, so you
I
got
rolled a 2
yeah.
on a save. My
On a
character ended up like just
having an
sitting,
existential
just like lying in a corner. Like he just sat in a corner and just started rocking back and forth.
yeah.
And everybody just
Yep.
what just happened to him?
And they're just like, well, he's indisposed right now, so you got to go alone. Plus, this creeping chill is gonna like
And
really.
then all of a sudden, like the room just started getting cold, and it's like, do we just leave him?
It's like take your pick, take your pick right now because it's getting there.
It's like, and he's like, the room just got about 10 degrees colder. We're leaving him. It's like, okay.
And
It's
that's
like,
all I wanted to see how those two were able to handle themselves without Tim being the ultimate mage tank.
because pretty much if they got into trouble, I was their healer.
Right,
Or if they were starting to get swarmed, I would put up a shield for them to get behind.
right.
So it was one of those like I was always around, and
Save their
they
skin.
ended up through like almost 3 battles without me before my
Yeah,
character finally rolled high enough to get out of his own stupor.
right. Basically, they went through like 8 rooms being chased by this creeping chill. They have no idea what's going to happen to them if they get caught with it until he finally was able to locate them, and they finally got to the next area.
Yeah, and
So
it's always about that. And I love challenging my players to like think outside of the box. I will always, as a DM, award points if a player thinks of something that I didn't think of. As a DM that's doing a homebrew or even following the modular. Um, for example, like you always hear of like the players like, "Oh, I'm gonna cut the rope to the chandelier and hopefully it'll land on top of the enemy, knocking them out or whatnot." Like those kind of things. It's been done. Don't get me
yeah,
wrong. Does it work? Sometimes. But you gotta hope that there's a chandelier and there's a rope right just happens to be right next to you and that's what you're gonna be doing. You know. But at that same scenario of in his campaign, one of our players picked up a violin and there was a specter, there was a podium, and he said, what if I tried playing the violin I found? What will happen?
yep.
And it started to work. And we said, well, what if we made a whole orchestra? So a bunch of unseen servants later, we had a whole orchestra.
And with that little event, they basically
Stopped ourselves from
uh
getting swarmed by a bunch of monsters.
yeah, basically they saved themselves being swarmed by a ghost storm. So that was they thought outside the box with that one. And I was like, I give that to you. I give that to you because I was gonna swarm you.
You know, like one of my old campaigns that I had one character decide to almost take himself out with the dragon. So I gave him credit for it. Did I let him roll for it? Yes. Did I give him advantage? Yes. Why? Because he thought it was a good idea to try to jump on top of the back of a dragon and try to use his sword as a saw and cut off a
Yeah,
wing while it was falling.
Yeah,
Would it be the smartest thing in the world?
mm, not really, but
Would it be preoccupied? Yeah.
yes.
Would he have advantage? It's paying attention to getting sharp pains in its wing? Yeah.
Mhm.
Would it be focusing on flying? Or trying to fly? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's things like that.
As
Like,
long as he can stay balanced, let's go for it. What's he do? Ties himself around its neck. Starts hacking it away. Let's have at it. Outside of the box. Those are the things that a DM should look for. Anything that you kind of didn't think of to start, it gives them the chance to really reach out and say, would your character actually have done this? Did he manage to survive it? Barely, but yes. Do you have some of those harebrained ideas of, hey, let's jump down this hole and see if what happens? Does it always end up well for you? Sometimes. Sometimes no.
yeah, yeah. It's like I always like seeing stuff like that, where you think outside the box and come up with ways to improvise with what you got with the environment in order to just uh, get a leg up on the encounter. And depending on how the DM reacts, that can either go in your favor or not. And ultimately, that can end up just being a dice roll.
And at that point, it's up to the DM to say, you know what? I give you advantage, re-roll that. Or,
Yeah.
I like it. It's an easy DC. And when I say DC, that is a difficulty challenge. And those could be easy, difficult, medium, depending on what you're trying to do. You know, like opening a jar of pickles. Anybody that's had a jar of pickles, it could either be super easy or it could be really hard. It all depends on the jar. It really depends. Um, it's like the simplest way to explain it. Those are pretty much like the best ways to explain some of those kind of things.
Yeah.
Then what is it? Like I know I grab a lot of my references for games from like cartoons, manga, anime, and stuff like that. I also like to look at it in terms of any type of game I'm running. I also look at it in terms of would I love to see this as a movie or a book? Because picture if you're playing a campaign and you would love to read it as a story, it would make a great story then. Because if it's all working out, picture each character is playing a role in the story. And that's what you're wanting out of your campaign. So, in, and I'm going to keep using Durok's campaign just for the sole purpose he's here for it.
Mhm.
And it's the one that you're going to hear the most between ours right now. It's either going to be the one that's coming up, and I don't want to spoil it, and I want you guys to actually put stuff into it. Um, it's going to be the easiest one is picture. You have Tim, you have Burham, you have Percival. Um, they're your main characters in the story. You have Morag, um, basically your antagonist. Um, he's basically your guide in the story. He's assigning you your quests. He's basically your guiding light. Now, what they're doing inside the story is basically your chapters in the book. So when you look at it and break it down, is each game session would be a chapter of your book, or that's what you would aim for or expect. So if you would expect a game night to be kind of like a chapter in a book, that's what you should expect. or what you would hope for out of a game. So you might not have to go and say, oh, um, he cast Fireball, and so cast Magic Missile, and so missed horribly, and so missed this and that, the other thing. You don't have to put all that down.
Right.
You know, if you wanted to, you could. But then when you look at it in terms, we've had one group in mind. I'm gonna have to give a shout out to one of my friends on Facebook, Kevin King. He wrote phenomenal backstories, and he used to take phenomenal notes in our games. And if you ever read his backstories or his notes, I would have put money down saying, here, let's go and try to make this into a book. Especially when we did our trip into Ravenloft with Jeff as our DM. It was a phenomenal story. We ran a campaign that was a modular. Did we completely throw a wrench into the modular? Yes. Was it a blast? Yes. I still remember Kevin coming out with a song called Bahamut the Big Blue Fish. Because his character decided to make a song called Bahamut the Big Blue Fish. And if anybody doesn't know anything about our deities for Dungeons & Dragons, Bahamut is a great blue dragon, and he is the god of dragons. So basically, he is a lawful good dragon deity, and basically he is over knights normally. And basically his character just was making fun, but at the same time also honoring him. And the first time he heard of him, he thought he was a giant blue fish, so that's how he perceived him. And from there on out, he became Bahamut the Big Blue Fish. I wish I still had the song, because he literally, for the beginning of one of our campaigns, sang the song. And
wow.
with that, our DM, without missing a beat, said, go up a level. Without even missing a beat. And it was worth it. Those are the things that are like, you just love to see.
Yeah.
Because not only did you see a character take something that he thought of and went above, it was a player going and having fun with something that he came out with. And that's why I love the idea of the RPG guide for backstories and the other stuff like that. Because if you love your characters enough and you really want to see them grow, it's a great way for anybody that loves to write stories or loves to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
It's a great way to get out there. It's definitely.
Yeah. Love your characters enough, you'll put the time and effort to put as much detail and attention into them as much as you can. So much that they could be characters in like either a story or a video game.
Yeah. Like, that would be the best thing out there. Like, if you can look at it in terms of, would you want to read a book or watch a movie based off of your campaign? That is how you want to look at each session
Yeah.
at the end of it. Would that made a good episode, or would that have made a good chapter? And as a DM or as a player, if you're saying no to it, or if you're saying yes, you can always look at it and say, what was I missing, or what could I have added?
Right.
Those are those points that you could always change or adjust. And that is something as a helpful hint that I've always looked at. Those are the quick little guides that I would recommend myself. Like, I know for the Morag campaign, like the Magic School, I think it would have a great premise. Like as far as the actual like book line, it would be fun. It would be completely different. You know, how often do you hear of a school ran by a mind flayer? No, don't get me wrong, it's a fiction,
Yeah.
you know, but at the same time, come on, it would be a blast. No, don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, it would be a nightmare to keep writing out. And they hid in Tiny Hut, and then they hid in Tiny Hut, and then they hid in Tiny Hut. No, you make the quick like you narrow some of the parts down, you know.
Yeah.
And that's any of those kind of storylines. So any of those people that are running a campaign and you did have that idea, more power to you that if you do want to take your campaign and eventually look at the idea of trying to write out notes and stuff, including the notes of what character met with which NPC or who they talked to, and side notes like that. You have people that have little grab bags for their players or XP boosts or stuff like that for their players and have little contests where if they remember what was the name of the NPC from our second encounter that you guys had, or like who was your who was the name of the first student you guys met at our school.
Mhm.
Unless we wrote it down, I'm gonna put money down that none of us in our group know it because I know I don't. Unless I look at my character sheet, I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
Because literally in our last game for it, I literally said, "Hey, is that student that had for the first class with him here?" And he literally went, "Yeah, he's running towards class. Cool. I want to snatch him by the ear." He's like, "Why? Hey, where's this person?" It's like, really? It's like, well, he would know the school better than I would,
And
you
that
know.
was completely.
But like those are the neat little things, and what it does is it draws your players into paying it more attention. And if your players take notes, they're gonna pay more attention to your game while playing. And your character sheets have spots for notes. They have spots for your allies. They have spots for your organizations. You have spots for all sorts of stuff. And don't get me wrong, legal pads, your friend. Yes, I know it says Zoids. That was from Monday. We had our anime list. Don't go there. No, or go there. Go watch last episode. Go watch last episode. Anime lists. Um, trying to think. I know we talked a lot from the DM's point of view. Something as a player. What is something as a player you like to see when you're playing?
In the campaign.
Yeah.
Uh, as a player in the campaign, I like to see. I always like to see points in the game where they're like a little bit like you're in a timed rush. The feeling of suspense that get through. I like having that situation where we have to think on our feet and maybe not. There's someone's going to get hurt. It's like, but it just adds a sort of realness to it, and it engages everyone to just like, okay, we gotta do this, gotta figure this out, do this and this. I like scenarios like that. If the DM has a way of putting that in every so often, I like doing this.
Oh God. So if you're like him and you love traps, check out Tomb of Annihilation. Check out Tomb of Horror. Um, they are massively trap heavy. Um, they're not of the faint of heart for those kind of adventures. Um, Also, what is it? Why can I not remember the full name? It's something Heist,
Uh,
Dragon's Heist or something like that. It's a
I can.
pre-made modular. It's on
Mm,
it's on there. I recommend it. I could in a sec. I'll tell you the name. Why did I just turn off my phone instead of opening it up and type in the right password? Yeah, I can actually type. Oh, I can't. Where are you? I want my book listing. Reasons why I love D&D Beyond. Yes, I want my entire catalog of books. Because literally on my phone, I'm logged
called
into
Dragon
D&D
Horde Fight?
Beyond. Huh?
Dragon
So,
Hordes?
literally on my phone, I have my complete list of books. So, it is The Tomb of Annihilation. You have Tomb of Horror. Oh, yeah, it is The Dragon's Heist. And you have the Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Yeah. We
Oh,
played a
there
little
it
bit of
is. Yeah. So, remember the one that we were talking about with the Magic the Gathering earlier?
that.
It's Guild's Master's Guide to Ravnica.
Okay.
Basically, it's bringing Magic the Gathering over to D&D. So if you're a Magic the Gathering fan and you want to try out D&D, check that book out. It would definitely help you out. It would give you some ideas. It's a modular. It's pretty cool. Um, it's well worth having. I can't believe there's what? Really?
How many are
I don't
there?
I don't own
What?
I don't own 8 books on this site. Aw.
Hmm.
But there's one, two, three, four,
I know two came
six,
out and you just
seven,
pre-ordered them, so you don't really own them yet.
10, 12, 16, 17, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6, 27, 28, 29, 30, 67, 2, 3. So there's 45 books that they have out as far as information for you to use at will on D&D Beyond.
Hmm.
And it doesn't cost a ton. And what's nice is once you download it, you have the books. You can literally download the on your phone, and on lunch break, breaks at work, or even you could read your book. You can read the books. You can bookmark your pages for certain things. You can read through the spells, magic items, equipment, monsters, races, classes, backgrounds, and feat. Um, so I'm gonna quickly break down some of the other stuff onto that a little bit more, just because it does help out. Um, the retrospect of having actual like reference at hand while playing, it does play a big part. Like having an idea of what you're using and having a character sheet as a player in front of you, it does help. Now, I have seen people play and not have a character sheet at all, um, where you can do everything completely role play, and you guys can have fun with that, and just have a page open with rolls, and just have a flat roll. You know, it's
Hmm.
all up to however you guys want to run your campaign, or as a player and DM. Um, so it could be completely based off the storytell. So as well as you explain your character or explain what you're wanting to do, it could be the sky's the limit. So literally, this is one of those games that the only limitation is your imagination. And that is the best part about this. And it's pretty much the only thing, like, that's one of the main reasons that really brought me into D&D, is that became one of the biggest points of this, is the only limitation is your imagination.
Yeah.
My number one thing, though, when I see as a player, I love when a player gets to have that, like, victory moment. Like, when they like, officially, like, accomplish something, like, big, where you fought hard for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that hard press, like, you didn't think you were going to win, but you just barely skated by.
Yep. Like
Like,
the
like
win
that,
with the skin of your teeth.
right. Like that, like, are we going to make it? Like,
Yeah.
can we do it? Like, is it going to work? Did it work?
Did it work?
Yes! It's like, yeah! It's like,
Yeah.
alright. It's like, that's like the best part on any of it. In my books, at least. Like, that's my number one fandom on that entirely. Um, like, that's my favorite victory moments. Like, I love those. Um, like, my next thing I would definitely love as a player is when the DM. I love a good storyteller where a DM can definitely go and say, like, describe something and can spin a tale. I am horrible. I'm not gonna lie. I get sidetracked, as you guys have noticed. I'm easily sidetracked. I'm that person that goes, ooh, squirrel, right? Good
Yeah.
storyteller, squirrel. Storyteller, squirrel. Got it?
Yeah. Uh,
But it doesn't stop me from being a DM. I do at times like take notes and I do my best to keep myself focused as best as possible. Um, like where I'll go and I'll set up different goals. And don't get frustrated. Always try to lead your characters down a path. If you have something planned, if they're planning something, or if they did something that throws your initial plan off kilter, such as, ooh, they're supposed to go left, but they decide to go right instead. Just make the road turn and make them go that way, or something like that. Don't just be like, oh, well, you can't go that way. That is the fastest way to lose players. I know it's annoying. I know it's a nightmare to tell them that, but it's just sometimes they won't want to listen to it that way.
yeah.
It's sad. It's always one of those options. Um, I like putting in there where it's a quest board, where it's, hey, tell me what kind of quests you're looking for, and that way I'll come up with actual quests for you at the end. So that way I can go and figure out what you guys want from me.
Right.
So that way I can kind of get my player's point of view in and say, oh, you guys want this in the campaign. Okay, cool. I'll come up with an entire story arc for that. Like, ooh, you want a sea battle? All right, let's hit a sea battle in here. You know, start looking up water creatures. Check. How are they going to fight in water?
Right.
How will they get around that stuff? How long until they will drown? These are the things you want to find out. Because these are the things that the players are going to have to come across and figure out how they're going to get around. Especially, like, and that's the things, like, I like, is I like to get the players' point of view on a lot of things as a DM. So that way I'm keeping them entertained on what they want to do. You have a ton of different players. You have the storytellers. You have the keep giving me cannon fodder. I just want to. I'm here to fight. You have some that are here for the puzzles.
Yeah.
You have some that are here for the like overall, like the whole shebang,
Right.
like the whole story, the whole aspect of I want to be a hero. Um, and then you have some that are like, I'm here just to have fun, you know, spend time with friends, whether I get the campaign done or not, as long as I'm having fun, I could care less. And then you have some where it's like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you know, and that's why that timer comes into play. Because if you have all of those people at the table together, your show might take, you don't want to cut anybody short, but you don't want anybody to feel rushed, and you don't want anybody to feel pressured either, or to be pressuring somebody else. Because you don't want one player pressuring another player to do something because they're feeling rushed.
Right.
And that's the hard part. If you have a bad player, and there are bad players, and that's going to be something hard to deal with, especially as a DM. If you have a bad player in your group, you might be best friends with them, but sometimes they are a horrible player, and they're like rushing other players. They're trying to do something where they're always trying to steal the limelight or something like that. You at time just turn around and be like, yeah, talk to them. Like, hey, I need you to back down or anything like that, because that one person can ruin it for everybody else.
Right.
So for you wanting to keep that one person happy, you'll lose everybody else in your group. And it's not worth it. Yeah, they might be your best friend, so at that point they should be willing to listen to you. I'm like, dude, you gotta chill, you know? And you don't have to do it in front of everybody. It could be at the end of the game. Like, dude, calm down, man. Anything. Like that's one of those things. It's like, hey, what should we do? Don't try to take, like, if somebody always ends up taking lead, see if they're like, what's the plan? Like, try to always see if somebody is willing to take lead or pass on lead. And don't get me wrong, somebody will always end up getting assigned leader in the party.
Yeah.
So occasionally, if you can, get them to get assigned somebody a party lead for the night. They're your party lead, and that way it goes around the table or whatnot.
Right.
I know we have hit the 2 hour mark.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from any of the viewers? I know I'm not watching my stream. Are you watching?
I'm watching.
That's one viewer. That means I got 2 other viewers. Do either of our other viewers have any questions for us? Anything? Show of hands? That do anything on the screen? In your chat? Probably not.
There's a
Nope.
delay when it comes online. Oh, no?
Probably not. Apparently not. Oh, there we go. Show of hands. Anybody?
All right.
Anybody got any questions? So don't forget, if you got questions, leave a comment. Send me a message. I'm on Facebook. I have you can find me from Herrick. Um, you can find me under Matt. Um, you can find us on Dragon's Breath Forge on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us. You can message us on here. You can follow us on any of our other medias. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, whatever it is you guys can do for us. Helps us out in any way. Don't forget, like us. Uh, like any of our team. Helps us all out in the long run. Definitely thank you for watching us, like always. Um, keep adventuring and be safe, have some fun. And if you guys have any ideas on what you want to ask, questions, or hear from us in any of our other videos or anything like that, reach out. Keep looking out for a Dragon's Breath Discord. I will hopefully figure out how to get that up and running soon. Hopefully this week coming up. I will hopefully have that up and running by next D&D night. That will be my next pet project at the same time as working on the website a little. Along with, if any of you guys have not noticed, I've also been working on our logo, slow and steadily. Been working on, if you guys can see it, our wonderful little logo is being slowly and steadily worked on. The logo eventually. I hope you guys like it. I know it'll eventually get to be a little bit more detailed and a little bit better. So let's have some fun with that. Don't forget, follow Coach Caboose TV on Twitch. Myself, subscribe to me. Him, Duroc. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and anything else. If anybody has any questions, comments, feel free to hit us up. Keep adventuring. Anything else from you?
No, that's about it.
All right, guys. Be safe. Till
Later.
next time.